call the Hopkinton Town Council meeting of September 3rd, 2019 to order with a moment of silent meditation and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we start, just so folks know, our town manager's on vacation, our finance director, Brian Rosso, is filling in case you're wondering where Bill is. And Kevin McAllister is also on vacation, and his partner, Ron Cascioni, is behind us, just so you know. First up, special event permit. Open a hearing on an application for a special event permit filed by Karen Windsor on behalf of Foster Parrots Limited for their annual fundraiser with tour, live music and buffet, scheduled for Saturday, September 7, 2019, from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Foster Parrots Limited, facility located at 87 Woodville Alton Road, Hope Valley.
Motion to sit as a licensing board. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey, Karen.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, so I think that some of you have attended
Here we are.
our event, you know, so.
Yeah, it's nice.
And it's always the same. It's a mature crowd, and this will be our 9th year having this event on site at our facility. So.
How much is it?
Wonderful time.
How much is it again, Karen?
How much?
Yeah.
It's $65 a ticket. And it's all to support the almost 400 parrots and other exotic captive animals.
Would you put into the activities so in case anybody's not familiar with it?
Yes, so what we do is we start the day, we invite our guests, and these are people from all over the region, and some people come from other parts of the country as well that are supporters of our organization. We're a parrot rescue and sanctuary organization, and we also have international conservation projects going on. We do some adoptions for human-friendly birds. And so this is an annual fundraiser event to raise money in support of our efforts here. And our primary activity is permanent sanctuary for unadoptable parrots, because you may not all know that a lot of parrots don't really make great pets. So we're here for those birds and other captive exotic animals who have failed as pets or who are refugees of the pet trade or the zoo trade.
And they live a long time.
Yeah.
That's the other thing.
They sure do, and a lot of the birds under our care are really great animals, but they have outlived their people, and so after a lot of our surrenders are birds that are coming from people who have just grown too old to care for them or who have died, and that's probably one of our biggest surrender incidents.
You have tortoises too, I think.
We do, because I don't know who would think that a tortoise would be a great pet, but these sulcata tortoises, you can buy them in a pet store, they're this big. 15 years later, they weigh 150 pounds. And so we're really here, we do a lot of advocacy work and educational work throughout Rhode Island and throughout the region. And it's really about, exotic animals should not be in our homes. And unless you can provide for the natural behavior of any of these animals in captivity, you should not have these animals. And so we do a lot of advocacy work for these animals as wild animals. Leave them in the wild and protect them in the wild. So hence our conservation work.
And one thing I learned, I was there 2 years ago, I guess, the birds, if they come to you, they gravitate to you, they like you, I guess, and some don't, I guess. Right, I was curious how some would come to you and then others would just stay away.
Well, a lot of our birds, probably about 50% of the birds at our sanctuary are wild-caught birds. And they were brought in prior to 1992, before the Wild Bird Conservation Act went into effect. And a lot of these birds are not human socialized. They're wild animals that were pulled out of the forests. Birds that are raised in captivity to bond with humans They have that orientation and they may desire human contact, but still their natural wild behaviors are intact. So they tend not to work out so well in our homes because they are still very vocal, they still become very territorial, and they can still be very aggressive animals. So they love you, but they'll bite you. So it's tough. It's tough for, and this is really primarily the reason why we advocate them as wild animals, not as pets, because you can't take the wild animal out of these pets.
Is there anywhere you can release them
No.
back into the wild?
Yeah, you cannot. A lot of the birds that are born in captivity have no skills to survive in the wild. You can't bring them back. And then also birds that have been taken from the wild, they have come to the U.S. and it's a pathogen soup here. I mean, we've got parrots from Africa and Asia and South America, and they're mixing their pathogens together. So even under the best of circumstances, when you vet these animals, a lot of times they can mask their pathogens. If they're not shedding a virus, it will be undetectable. And if you return them to the wild, you can be introducing pathogens into the wild population that could potentially wipe out those birds. So you can't release them. So it's tough.
It is really worthwhile going and taking a look at it. It's quite an amazing location.
Well, all of our town council members are always invited to the event. And I actually meant to bring a flyer, but I didn't. But it's, it begins at 12 o'clock. We have an open house where people can tour the sanctuary between noon and 2, and then we shut down the interior sanctuary out of reverence for the birds and their privacy, and we bring the event outside. So some birds are in their outdoor aviaries. If they want to be seen, they can be seen, but
They usually come out.
respect their privacy.
They usually come out.
A lot of birds, they like to see the people. It's an exciting part of their day. So.
I think what's really exciting too is seeing some of the really huge ones are literally right there. They're not in a cage, they're attached to their roost, and you can get up close and personal.
Yeah.
And they're stunning, and they just look at you like, really?
Well, our slogan is no cage is big enough, and we don't believe that birds should be in cages. And so we work hard every year to remove them from cages and to build a facility where it's not so caged, for them.
It's quite amazing. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Karen in the event, folks? Okay.
Just so you'll know, and for the audience too, you say that we're invited, but it's actually violates the ethics rules if we accept anything in excess of $25. So you, if
So
we're
we
going,
always
we're
pay.
going to
You are welcome to pay. It is a fundraiser.
It's a fundraiser.
That's right. That's right.
But I think that, because we are such a part of this community, I think it's important that our townspeople know who we are and what we're doing. So absolutely buy a ticket and come to the event. It's good enough.
And if you'd like to schedule a visit off hours,
That's always
you
free.
can do that for free without any problem.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Lisa, everything's complete?
The application is complete. There is a waiver on the police presence. They paid the filing fee, license fee. That would be up to you if you wanted to waive that. But the $100 filing fee covers the cost of the ad.
Now, what is the other fee? The
The
cost?
license
Is it
fee.
$25?
$100.
No, there's advertising is 100.
Advertising was $82
Oh,
for this
82.
ad, and they paid the $100 filing fee, which covers the cost of the ad.
Right. I'd like to point out that they are tax exempt, but they pay taxes on their property, and they do good works for our town. They are a nonprofit, and I'd like to see us waive all the fees and have our town council contingency used for that.
Yes, absolutely.
And also the police presence.
Oh, yeah.
It's waived.
All right, so you have a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Having heard none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you later.
Thank you. Thank you. Move that we adjourn as a licensing board, we convene as a council.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. Next up, consent agenda, approved town council meeting minutes of August 19th, 2019, executive session minutes of August 19th, 2019, executive session minutes of August 5th, 2019, set November 4th, 2019 as a hearing date for renewals of liquor licenses and fictional licenses, set December 2nd, 2019 as a hearing date for renewals, approvals of holiday sales licenses, approved refunds as a result of overpayments on 2018 and 2019 motor vehicle tax and veterans and service exemptions submitted by the tax collector.
So moved.
Now, wasn't there some changes that you wanted to make to the minutes?
No, I think there was a couple of spelling errors, but we can correct them if there's no objection.
Okay.
There's not found that.
All right.
Motion made and seconded, right?
Yes.
No further questions?
With the exception of some spelling errors that we worked out.
Okay.
And mine.
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'm easy.
Nobody's
Good.
good at it.
First public forum, Sylvia, do you want to jump on that?
Oh, I just wanted to note that, things happen in our community, very nice things, and so I wanted to share one with you, just for informational, it's not for discussion. There was a tree that fell on a senior citizen in town. A tree fell on his house this winter. A neighbor of mine got the tree off. I don't know how he did it by himself, but he did. It was a very large 90-foot Norwegian spruce. And he has, and it poked 16 holes in his roof. So we've been trying to see how can we help to get this roof done. And he can't do the home repair program because his house is in disrepair, so he can't get insurance. So what there is in those cases is the neighbor-to-neighbor group. They're going to put a new roof on his house on Wednesday. And that's ahead of the hurricane, which is nice timing. And also, a local individual in town is going to take down those trees that are right near the house tomorrow, so that'll be ahead of it. But it's that sort of thing where volunteers are coming together to get this done for an individual.
Is that Neighbors Helping Neighbors?
Yes.
That's great. It's a good organization.
That's all, thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Nope.
Joe Moreau, Old Depot Road. I just want to continue with Sylvia's theme on thanking people. My wife and I, for several months, have had a problem on our street with a particular neighbor, his kids, and some of their friends. And we've spoken 3 or 4 times to the parents. We were never able to resolve it. One of the first things the dad said to me was, well, it's all because you're against solar. So, that continued, and as I said, after speaking to parents, my next step was to call the police, especially when my wife said, I'm going down there with you. So I did. I called Chief Palmer. I want to commend Chief Palmer, Officer LaRoche, the other officers involved. They responded quickly, listened to what we had to say. One of the things the chief had said was, Joe, why did you wait so long? And I just thought we could resolve it by speaking to the parents. But, sometimes we don't appreciate the great people that we have working in our town. And as soon as the chief was involved, there's been a police officer sitting down there throughout the day at certain times of the day. And for the last week or so, it's been very quiet. And I wanted to thank them for what they've done. The other thing is, I also want to thank Lisa and Marita. I put together a packet for a hearing that's coming up on September 23rd, and I spoke to Frank, and he had a good idea. He thought it would be better to put it in a packet form and give it to each town council member instead of myself sitting down one-on-one. And I think that's much better so that the town council members could read it at their leisure. Also, when I was speaking with Lisa, she had asked me a question, and she told me that her and Chris from the IT department were reviewing the town's website to make improvements. And I thought that was great, and I wanted to thank Lisa and Chris for doing that. Myself, my wife, and Carol DeRozier went to a land trust meeting a couple of weeks ago, and that was kind of interesting. Halfway through the meeting, a bat was flying through the Crandall house. We left in our Batmobile, so that was the end of that. My point is, we had no idea what the land trust does and how they're looking for volunteers to clean up trails and things like that. And I think that's a great example of information on the land trust on our website so that we could look at it. They were nice enough to give me their own email address, and of course I was referred to the Secretary of State's website, and then someone on the board said, no, he doesn't want to go there, it's too cumbersome. So, but there are a lot of great people in our town that need help. The last thing I want to say is, there's a hearing on September 23rd, and it ties in with the packet that was presented to council members. The application was date stamped May 19th. We all know the solar ordinance went into effect on January 22nd of 2019. It's 195 acres, and they want to use 26 for solar. And it comes out to over 13%. And I just don't understand. I know Kevin explained it to Sylvia why we have to have the hearing. But I just hope we don't have to go through this whole process of the attorneys and the paid witnesses and the developers when that was one of the points of the solar ordinance was the 3% max on that. And I encourage you to read that information. It's all facts, it's all information. There are always two sides to the story, I understand that, but this is some real serious issues. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Sean Henry. I was your planning board clerk for about 4 years, and I recently accepted a position in the town of Kingstown, so I just wanted to come back and say...
Oh, you're back?
Yes. And tomorrow night only for the planning board meeting. I just want to say to the council, thank you very much for having me here these past several years. I had a wonderful experience working in Hopkinton. I'm going to have some good memories here. I wanted to just comment quickly on the last project that I was working on was the update to the zoning ordinance. This is a project that was started several years ago by a consultant, and then it was put on ice for a few years while the zoning board dealt with some issues. I worked on it for several weeks before I left, and it's currently going through planning and boarding for final review. And I just wanted to recommend to the council that I have a couple things. I recommend keep the review of the zoning ordinance very high level and avoid getting caught up in wordsmithing and peripheral issues. I recommend you trust your staff, Jim and Sherry. Trust your expertise that you have in-house. They're willing to meet with you. I encourage them to meet with them if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to see implemented, because as I've seen with several ordinances, going line by line on a document this size is a little less productive at that size, and it can be a protracted situation. And it's important to remember that the consultant has completed their work, so it's not really feasible to do drafts, multiple draft iterations of it. So the draft has been vetted several times by the consultant, by in-house staff, by the solicitor. So, I would just say keep a high level, meet with them, and I strongly urge you guys to approve that when it comes to. I know it's a little over the horizon at this point, but that'll be coming soon. And again, I just want to say thank you very much.
Best of luck, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you in particular for all the work on the scenic riverways.
Yeah, I passed that torch, but
But you did a great deal of work.
It was a
on
great
that.
project.
That was important.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thank you. Next up, under my report, I have a public service message to convey to everyone. Last week, Ron McDonald, the town's emergency management director, reported to our office of the Code Red Community Notification System representatives had asked the town to run a test to validate telephone numbers in Hopkinton's database. This test call would allow them to adjust call speed and remove non-working phone numbers from the system. It will also alert citizens who are not included in the emergency notification system of the need to update their telephone numbers and contact information so they can be contacted in an emergency situation. Overall, the test call will increase the efficiency of the system and speed at which notifications will be delivered during an actual emergency. The EMA director reported that Hopkinton has not run the test since the town originally started partnering with Code Red, so he believes it's a worthwhile endeavor, particularly since hurricane season will be soon upon us. The test call was originally scheduled for September 11th, and that was quickly changed to September 12th for obvious reasons, starting around 10 a.m. Director McDonald will place notices in the Westerly Sun, as well as our webpage and social media pages, to alert as many people as possible to the upcoming test. He will record a test message, and the Code Red system will send out that message. The script of the message is attached for your convenience, so I don't have to go through it. I just wanted to basically let folks know who may be listening or in the audience that you can reach the EMA director or the EMA website to update your phone number. If you want to just use a cell number, that's fine. A landline is fine. The website is www.hopkintonri.org/emergency management, or you can call the EMA office at 401-377-2100 and leave a message. Thank you.
Oh, and to add, and I could be corrected, but we were able to list up to 5 telephone numbers, so that, I don't know that it's still 5, but you can add multiple numbers. Yeah.
Can you read that email?
Sure. www.hopkintonri.org/emergency management. Okay, thank you. First item, and only item under old business, was discuss and consider setting a hearing date for a zone amendment and comprehensive plan future land use map amendment filed by Centrica Business Solutions for the following property: Karen and James Serengia, 201 Chase Hill Road, Assessors Plat 2, Lot 32. But Lisa,
I talked to Attorney Surdick this afternoon, and he is not able to be here this evening, and he asked for continuance on the scheduling of this matter to September 16th.
So on December 16th,
September.
we'll schedule
excuse me, December 16th, we'll set,
September.
oh, on September 16th,
We'll
we,
schedule it.
oh, okay.
Okay.
The only thing I have is on a lot of solar things and different projects, it seems that we're always rescheduling, and town council, we do get a stipend, but we do volunteer our time, and we have to deal with all these people that are making a lot of money, lawyers and engineers and so forth, that seem that they have a little courtesy to the town council as a body to be prepared, or even have their law partner, whatever color for them. And it's just a personal gripe that I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First item on the new business is number 1, discuss, consider the development of a formal townwide policy that establishes specific criteria for the issuance of locator cards required for the school enrollment purposes. The reason this item is on the agenda was the town manager, Bill McGarry, received a call last week from the superintendent of schools, Barry Ritchie, stating that he was very well aware of certain families that did not live in our town that are apparently seeking residency for school enrollment purposes. So of course, when I heard that, I flipped the lid And we can't afford the ones that are actually accurate and honest, never mind fraudulent. So, you know, it's unbelievable. So anyway, so I think, you know, Lisa's obviously charged with issuing the locator cards when families come to her office and say, hey, we want to go to school at Chapel. There's a certain, you know, criteria that Lisa gives out as far as paperwork and submission of documents that proves that they live in town. But I think, you know, Lisa, you correct me if I'm wrong, I think the missing piece of it, at least for our town, is perhaps a police site visit. So before a locator card is given out to a family, say, great, fill out the application. Before we give you the locator card, we're going to have the police do a site visit to make sure that the children are actually living in the premises and not just, you know, at their uncle's house that morning, or the uncle drives them to the bus stop. That isn't going to work. It's too expensive. It's about $18,000 to $20,000 per kid, and we just can't do it anymore. And like I said, we need to have a town policy to deal with this. And aside from the site visit from the police department, I think we also should have something in there that deals with any legal recourse. Whether we've had to pay for kids or we're about to pay for kids, what's the recourse? If it's the town of Westerly, which I've heard from the superintendent, there was a number of kids from Westerly. If it's us going to Westerly and pursuing it legally, or if it's going to the school department, I'm not sure. But I know I've talked to Ron in Kevin's absence, and hopefully we can get some kind of a town-wide policy that addresses this fraudulent behavior, because it just isn't going to work anymore. We can't afford it. So that's why it's there. I hope that we can, hopefully Lisa's office, through the solicitor and the town manager, they can develop a town-wide policy that addresses this fraudulent activity. So.
You know what I'd like to know? What the other two towns do and what exactly they do, and that I don't know if it's uniform all the way around, but we know what we need to do.
Yeah, so to that point, I know Bill and I chatted briefly, he's on vacation, but I believe Charlestown has a very good policy in place. I had asked Bill to reach out to Mark Stankiewicz there, the administrator, to be connected with him. Lisa also reached out to the clerk, has not gotten their policy, but I believe that the one piece that is missing with our procedures is a site visit.
Well, that is
among maybe other things, perhaps,
right.
but I think that's the critical piece.
We can certainly get involved, and that means that the chief is going to be getting involved.
Well, it's going to happen, yeah.
But we had an incident last week where we had to call on the chief and the department, and they responded, and a report came out. So you know, it can be done.
Right.
So I think formalizing a proper policy rather than just stating it's something I'm arbitrarily coming up with, I think is best for me as well.
Right.
And it helps me and my staff try to read through it, and I think it's a good thing. I mean, we try to be really careful with that, but as
you're not doing site visits,
people can do and say what they will. So,
Do you have any ideas specifically? Anything that you want?
well, years ago, it used to be that when someone wanted to come into town and they had a child that didn't belong to them, we tell them you had to go to your family court or probate court. For some reason, it can't. I mean, it's maybe a legal thing. I think the previous director of the Department of Education at the state level also had a very open policy, and it was where the child was. It didn't matter who the child belonged to. If the child was in the town, it didn't matter your issue or and there are some things and there are times, unfortunately, where people don't have a place to live. And it's the last known residence where they live, they don't, and you're paying for that. We require proof, hard copies of things, but in today's world, it is not a hard copy world. People don't get electric bills a lot of times, it's online, or, so it's hard. And it takes us a long time, and oftentimes it's more than one visit for them to come and to be able to acquire that card for a normal situation. But there's very few normal situations. Families are split, it's complicated.
Yeah, I'm saying with my grandmother and whatever, but
Right.
not my legal guardian technically.
Family members, help family members, that's a normal course of action, and I think that it's something that has gone on in some cases. Maybe some years more often than others, but you try to work through it and get the best information that you can. But there are people who will bypass it and will find a way.
At our expense,
So
taxpayers.
I think if you can have between the solicitor's office, town manager's office, my office. We can come up with a formal process, and I think maybe just like what the school district has, if you provide false information, the town of Hopkinton will commence an appropriate legal action, if we can do that. And those are the legal things that we would have to find out that.
And just as an aside, I'll let everyone else chime in, but just as an aside, what Bill was saying, that Barry, when Barry did call him, he was very familiar with these particular families. So that even made me even more upset.
Well,
I
I'm
don't know
glad,
how long he's known, I don't know.
I'm very glad that superintendent's office reaches out.
Right.
You know, whether it be you or the town manager, his assistant reaches out to me all the time. And we, to them also, they try to give us a heads up, we try to give them a heads up. So we all realize the expense that this is.
So I think, you know, in some cases, people should be prosecuted for fraudulently obtaining services from the town, just as you would obtain any other service in the town, whether it's food stamps, or not food stamps out of the town, but I'm just saying that it's a benefit to the state or any other type of thing, because it constitutes fraud. People willingly violate the law. That's a criminal offense as far as I'm concerned. And if the laws need to be tightened on that, maybe we should have a legislative delegation introduce legislation in the General Assembly to tighten that law. But when somebody obtains a financial benefit under false pretenses, that's fraud. And it shouldn't be considered anything less. And I'm not saying maybe temporarily, because of a family situation, somebody is staying with relatives. But that's and that could easily be ascertained by legal action or investigation by the police or whatever. But we really have to be tough with fraud, because that's a lot of money. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
It may be that, for instance, they're swearing an oath to the truth, and it may be that perjury can go to, violation of perjury can go to the municipal court.
And
So
I'm not,
hopefully,
I'm not sure if it's criminal so much as it's civil. And one of the problems that we do have with the superintendent of schools for the state is that they have come up with a policy that a child may go to whatever school they want to. So that's an issue too, that I know all the schools are fighting, because they would like their kids to be from their own district and not any district they feel like going to, that we then not only have paid for our child, but we also pay for the fact that they go to another school in another district. So I think it's a complex problem. I'm glad it was brought up, and I certainly hope that, Lisa, you're comfortable calling the chief on any place, anytime it's a confusion, and just make it as clear as possible. It is a difficulty, and there are certainly compassionate times that we have to deal with where people do not have a home and the child is staying with a relative. But we need to know that upfront and for how long. So at least we can address that and address where the child may actually be billed, if not for Hopkinton, or at least partially billed in another location. It is a complex problem. Lisa is absolutely correct.
Well, I think that if you bring up the fact that before we issue any local card, we're just going to have, that's going to be the standard practice. So if we come in, we collect all the information, and then
It's like
send
business
it over
or
to
whatever
the
else.
chief and his department to confirm. We would have to post something on the website, have a sign in the office that states that there's going to be a delay. And people are not going to be happy, but we cannot make everybody happy.
And then the legal disclaimer too.
Yep, yep.
So,
Mr. President,
yes, Chief.
the police department will always be happy to go out there and help in any way we can. Usually it's the truancy officer and the SRO, they usually get involved before we do. One suggestion might be, many of these people are going through some type of legal action, whether it be family court for divorce or separation, in there that they get a decree authorizing where that child is going to reside and with whom, because that does give you some backing from the law, and also I think it would keep people honest, so they're not shuffling children around from any place they want to go.
Right. Yeah, good point. Thanks, Chief. So we'll get the solicitor's office to work on that. policy, I guess, as far as the police and the SRO. Student resource officer, that's usually the person from Richmond.
And again, unfortunately, it's a district-wide problem, and that one or two individuals are behind, and it's going to take them days to be able to, it's not just a Hopkinton problem.
No, right. Okay. Any other comments or suggestions, folks?
I just wanted to know if there were other school districts that had these policies that we could use as best practices.
Yeah, I think Charlestown has a pretty good policy. So Lisa's reached out to the clerk, Bill has reached out to the administrator, town administrator in Charlestown. We're just going to try and get a copy of that policy. I don't think Richmond has a comprehensive policy.
No, they are posted on their website, but they have something similar to what we have. So
I think the big piece that's missing is the site visits and the legal disclaimers and all that stuff.
it would be appropriate that all three towns do the same thing.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Last public forum. Anyone out there? Yes.
Carol DeRoches, Pleasant View Drive. I would just like to add on to Councilman First's commentary about rescheduling the hearings for the different solar proposals. From my perspective, it impacts the public as well. That is actually why I did come tonight. And what you can obviously see happening is the public is becoming less and less engaged because of all these constant changes. And I think that is a disservice to the public.
Thanks, Carol.
Joe Moreau, Old Depot Road. I just want to echo what Scott and what Carol said. My wife hadn't planned on coming tonight either. And she looked at the agenda and said, oh, Chase Hill Road is on the agenda tonight for solar. So we both decided to come. Bill's on vacation, there's a replacement. Kevin's on vacation, there's a replacement. I go back to Brushy Brook. The attorney's out of the country. So one person goes on vacation and 100 or so residents have to change their schedule because of the attorney out of the country. Is it just one attorney in this particular office? You can't have someone else here? I know you don't have the answer, you can't answer it, but if it's that important to the residents to be here, it should be more important to the attorney to be here. They just can't be canceling these. There's one developer that has had 6 scheduled hearings and has canceled 5 of them. It's almost a year. I think we're going to end up in November with this one developer. It's been almost a year. I had mentioned that either a town council meeting or planning board, as Lisa's full aware of it, when the application is filled out, the town has 45 days, then 90 days, and that clock is running. I believe, in my opinion, it should be the same way for the developer. If the developer realizes that I've got to follow this time constraint, they may be a little less apt to cancel the meetings. I know Kevin mentioned at one of the meetings when a resident brought this up that it really could be something that the town council looks at and decides, when are we going to say enough is enough? Is it after they've rescheduled 2 hearings? I mean, that's a number you'd have to come up with. But I just think it's unfortunate. There was a senior citizen that was looking for a ride tonight. It's one of the abutters to this project, and stopped over the house, and Paul and I were speaking with him this week, and I said to him, and he has an issue with his wife with health concerns, and I said, I don't know if I would change your schedule to get someone to watch your wife while you're at this meeting. It's probably going to be rescheduled. And I could see this elderly person that goes out of his way to get someone to spend the time with his sick wife, comes to this hearing. Oh, the attorney.
But Joe, this isn't a hearing tonight.
It's just
I'm
a
sorry,
schedule. Just a
It
schedule.
wasn't a hearing, it was just a schedule. And there's also been scheduling, out of an abundance of fairness, there have also been hearings that have been rescheduled because we just didn't have time to have them all at the same
I
time.
understand that.
And our solicitor did answer this before and said, you know, we don't really have a choice in the matter. It's one of those things that eventually gets scheduled
They have to be
and
heard.
eventually gets heard.
And I think too, one of the things that if the public, if you're like your group when it was during solar, if you needed more time and you could come forward and say, I need it postponed because we need more time, I think it's something that the council should look at as well, which is why it goes so long. The zoning board with the gas station at exit 1 was 2 years worth of meetings, and it will still come back again after going to court twice. These things do not happen overnight, and the longer it takes, the more information you have, and sometimes that is to your advantage, not disadvantage, because it happens both ways. And we do, by law, have to be fair to everyone, and you can get sick, and you can take a vacation that's been scheduled. It is difficult, I know.
So I'm not trying to get off this is public forum.
Yeah. My point about taking a vacation, when you agreed to, you're at a hearing on October 15th, and you agreed to postpone it to the following week, October 22nd of last year, and then you're out of the country. There's no excuse for that. You're right, there are some vacations that you already have planned. I know Sylvia has one with her husband, and that's great. But when the attorney realizes, I'm not going to be there next week because I'm on vacation, I think that's unacceptable. I think 5 out of 6 hearings postponed is unacceptable. I may agree to disagree with Sylvia, but I recall Kevin say that there is a limit that the town council can say, enough is enough, we just can't keep continuing to reschedule all these hearings. Things come up, I understand that, but it's too much of a record with a lot of these developers, that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Motion to adjourn, please.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.